Okay, let's talk about Janet Jackson's escapade. And no, not the song. When the singer was asked about the prospect of America electing a black woman president, she said of Harris, quote, "Well, you know what they supposedly said? She's not black." That's what I heard, that she's Indian. Her father's white. That's what I was told. I was told that they discovered her father was white. Yeah, that's not true. But those words do echo Trump saying that Harris magically turned black. And yet it gets worse. When Jackson was later pressed whether she thinks America is prepared to see Harris in office, she said, "I think either way it goes is going to be mayhem." Either way. Jackson's comments generated outrage online until a credited producer on her upcoming documentary walked it back. Before that person was seemingly fired, leaving it unclear whether Ms. Jackson still believes that Kamala Harris isn't black and really is willing to tell her billions of fans that there's no difference between Harris and Trump. It's a weird sequence of events, but Jackson is not alone. There's a host of celebrities who have made bizarre comments in actual support of Trump, who has long depended on endorsements from celebrities and Manoverse influencers, mostly because reputable experts and political figures have largely abandoned him. Still, the reality is that all campaigns want celebrity endorsements. Analysis from Harvard University's Ash Center shows it works. And it's, quote, incredibly powerful when centered around calls to action like registering voters or poll worker signups. And it is worth noting for those counting, when it comes to celebrities, VP Harris has a massive list. And it's really a list, up to and including Oprah, who might be the biggest endorsement get of all. Trump, on the other hand, has a C list, although he does have the parents of some A-listers to keep Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock company. Joining me now is Alencia Johnson, former senior advisor to the 2020 Biden-Harris campaign and author of Flip the Script, The Everyday Disruptor's Guide to Finding Courage and Making Change. I love that idea. I love that book idea. Alencia, thanks for being here. Let's start with, I want to go back to Janet Jackson because I originally didn't want to really do this story because I'm really not trying to embarrass Janet Jackson. I just don't, I'm a big fan of hers. I grew up listening to her. But I think about the power of her. I was just at Essence Fest this year. She performed. Her fan base is massively black women. Black women all around the world are her core base. And if she is this subject to misinformation and disinformation, I feel like she actually does have the power to spread that disinformation and misinformation. And that winds up disempowering black voters, black women voters in particular. What do you make of it?
Well, look, we know that disinformation and misinformation spreads rampant in black communities, and the way in which we engage them is actually through a lot of culture mechanism. Not everybody is, well, I like to think everybody's watching us, Joy, but a lot of people aren't watching cable news in the way that we think they are to get some of their political messaging. And as you mentioned, Janet Jackson has a huge fan base. Look, I was a Janet Jackson fan before I was a Beyonce Beehive member, right? She also has talked about racism and sexism and discrimination in her music. I mean, all of the Jacksons have, right? And so I think it is great for us to talk about it because people are a little bit disappointed. And this is an example of, to your point, how fast this information spreads rampant and how it's so important for us to combat it everywhere, especially in the digital space where pop culture and entertainment spreads a lot faster than truth and news.
Yeah, and the thing is that these celebrities, they have a power, and we were talking about this on the call earlier, is what is the power of celebrities? Like, how do campaigns really use them? And my take, just from the campaign side, is they don't necessarily make somebody who didn't want to vote for candidate A vote for them, but they can make someone who is open to it register, actually, or sign up to vote, or go out and early vote, or just commit, right? They can get people to commit. But when they're actually just being messengers on, like, politics and policy. Let me just let you listen to what John Legend had to say about that.
I think fans and audiences should be careful about wanting us to weigh in on everything because honestly, no, the depth and the breadth of understanding necessary to contribute meaningfully to the conversation is actually just not there for most artists. And you can't really blame them. This is not what they do every day, you know? They're musicians, they're actors, they're in the public eye, and you want them to use that platform for good, but also you want them to do it with a sense of understanding and knowledge and wisdom and connection to activists and organizers and experts. And everybody's just not able to do that.
Alencia, you're actually teaching a course on this. How do we get that balance right in politics?
Yeah, look, my first actual political job was doing surrogate communications work for Obama's reelection campaign, working with a lot of celebrities to refine their messaging. Because what we find is that oftentimes it's not the message, it's the messenger that will, to your point, get voters from the couch to the ballot box, or get people who are going to vote to actually start organizing and mobilizing. And I agree somewhat with what John Legend has said. And what I have found in working with the entertainment industry and a lot of my jobs is that celebrities, yes, they're artists, but they are also people first, right? There are issues that they care about, whether it's reproductive rights, racial justice, and a lot of times, particularly marginalized voices, will use their art as a form of protest and amplifying the message. If we look at last year, Hip Hop 50, hip hop was birthed out of a protest movement, from Fight the Power to F the Police to UNITY to all of the things that Meg Thee Stallion and Lotto have said about these abortion restrictions. They are using their art as a form of not only protest and education, but galvanizing. And the other thing I'll say, too, Taylor Swift endorsed the night of the debate. Well, Vote.org saw almost 30,000 voter registrations within 24 hours of that endorsement.
Yeah.
That is the power of celebrity. So they're not helping people decide on who they're going to vote for. They're helping people decide that they are actually going to vote.
Yeah, it's interesting because, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but there's the risk in it, too. I mean, Nikki Jam getting said about him, she's hot by Donald Trump is like, and he's now getting like just pilloried by his fans. But meanwhile, on the Democratic side, they're like waiting on Bad Bunny. They're like, come on, come through Bad Bunny, because it can really help us with Latino voters. So everybody wants the celebrities, and they do help in certain ways. Alencia Johnson, thank you so much.